In the year 2165, humanity finally unlocked the key to faster-than-light travel. This monumental achievement opened the stars to exploration and expansion. Earth had always looked up at the night sky, dreaming of reaching the unknown. Now the dream was a reality. The first fleet of human explorers, led by Captain Area Grant, was about to embark on its maiden voyage. They were heading toward an uncharted star system on the edge of known space. The crew was full of excitement and optimism. It felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Their journey was one of discovery. They would seek out new worlds and make humanity's mark across the stars. The possibilities seemed endless, but nothing could have prepared them for what they would encounter. As the fleet reached the outskirts of the system, they detected signals. The signals were not from another human ship. They were from something else. Something alien. A colossal presence in the form of a powerful starship appeared from the shadows of the system. The alien ship dwarfed their vessels in size and strength. It was clear that humanity was not the only intelligent species in the universe. The alien vessel hailed them. The voice that came through the communication system was cold and dismissive. The alien species called themselves the Vaulter. They claimed dominion over the system. Earth had no right to explore it. The Vaulter's words were not simply a warning. They were a declaration. The Vaulter Empire was ancient and vast, with technology and knowledge far beyond anything humanity had achieved. The fleet was nothing but a speck in their eyes. The Vaulter saw humanity as a minor nuisance. Captain Grant, who had trained her whole life for this moment, stood tall at the helm of the ship. Her heart raced, but her mind remained sharp. The Vaulter had just made a mistake. They had underestimated humans. Earth's fleet might be small, but it was built with purpose. It was equipped with the latest technology, and more importantly, its people were unafraid of taking risks. They were determined to survive and thrive no matter the cost. The Vaulter's dismissive attitude only fueled their determination. They issued an ultimatum: leave the system immediately or face destruction. But Captain Grant wasn't ready to back down. She called for an emergency meeting with her crew. As the leaders of Earth's first interstellar fleet, their role was not just to explore, but to represent humanity. They would not turn tail and run. Not after all they had worked for. They had come too far to be cowed by an alien species simply because they were more advanced. Grant's plan was simple. They would not engage in a direct battle with the Vaulter fleet. Instead, they would use the environment to their advantage. Humanity's strength was in adaptability. They would strike quickly, disabling the Vaulter's communication systems to send a message that Earth could not be ignored. The crew quickly got to work preparing their ships for the mission. With tension mounting, the fleet took their first steps into the unknown. They would not back down. They would show the galaxy that humanity was capable of far more than anyone had ever imagined. The first few moments after the Vaulter ultimatum were filled with tension as Captain Grant and her crew prepared for the unknown. The gravity of the situation hit hard as the Vaulter's cold and menacing message echoed through their comms. The fleet had only a handful of ships against an empire that spanned star systems, and the Vaulter were not willing to let them go without a fight. The human explorers knew they could not afford to engage in a direct battle. They would be destroyed in seconds, so the plan had to be bold, and it had to be fast. Captain Grant had ordered an evasive maneuver. They would not be sitting targets. Instead, they would use the asteroid belt that surrounded the system to their advantage. The fleet moved into the dense field of space rocks and debris where the Vaulter's large ships would struggle to navigate. The humans had smaller and more agile vessels, their only advantage against such overwhelming force. As the fleet moved deeper into the belt, the Vaulter ships followed, but their pursuit was slow and clumsy. As Captain Grant watched the Vaulter fleet's movements on her screen, she knew they had underestimated the humans. She could already feel the tension in her bones. She ordered her crew to prepare for a series of quick strikes. They would target Vaulter communication systems with electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt their control over the fleet. These strikes would create confusion and allow them to escape if they were lucky. The plan was risky, and it all hinged on timing. One wrong move, and they would be sitting ducks in the asteroid field. Captain Grant watched as the first of the pulses was launched. The attack was successful for a brief moment. The Voltar lost contact with one of their ships. The chaos was palpable. As the Voltar scrambled to regain control, the humans had bought themselves precious time. But it was not enough to escape. The fleet was still being pursued, and they needed to think quickly. It was then that something unexpected happened. A distress signal from one of the Voltar ships crackled through the comms. Captain Grant's heart skipped a beat. The signal was a call for help. The Voltar ship had been sabotaged by its own crew members, who had managed to disable their own communications in an effort to escape the oppressive rule of the Voltar Empire. Captain Grant hesitated for only a moment before making a decision that would change everything. She ordered her fleet to intercept the disabled Voltar ship and offer assistance to its crew. The humans had stumbled upon a resistance faction within the Voltar Empire. Within moments, a small group of Voltar rebels aboard the ship greeted the humans. They were desperate, but determined. They had seen the cruelty of the Voltar regime firsthand, and they knew that the humans were their only hope in overthrowing the Empire. They shared their knowledge of the Voltar fleet's weaknesses and promised to aid the humans in their efforts to break the Empire's grip on the galaxy. Captain Grant realized this was the opportunity they had been waiting for. The humans were no longer alone. They had found allies within the enemy's ranks. Now they had a chance to hit the Voltar where it hurt, and to strike fear into the heart of an empire that had ruled with an iron fist for centuries. This alliance would be the spark that set the galaxy on fire. With the alliance between humanity and the Voltar rebels now in place, the tide of the war began to shift. Captain Grant could feel the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders, but she also knew this was the moment when everything could change. The first order of business was to unite their forces and form a real strategy to take on the Voltar Empire. The human fleet and the rebel Voltar ships worked together to raid key Voltar military installations. The rebels had valuable knowledge about the Empire's inner workings, and they shared everything they knew with Captain Grant and her crew. The humans quickly adapted to the new information at their disposal. They began to develop tactics that were unconventional and highly effective. They used the Voltar's reliance on outdated and rigid tactics against them. The human ships attacked with speed and precision, targeting weak points in the Voltar's defenses and retreating before they could be countered. This guerrilla warfare strategy caught the Voltar off guard and caused major damage to their supply chains and military infrastructure. As the small victories piled up, the Earth fleet began to grow in strength and confidence. Captain Grant knew that every victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal, but she also knew the Voltar would not take these attacks lightly. The Empire would retaliate with force, and they would strike back harder than ever before. In the midst of these strikes, a surprise came when a fleet of Zykor ships arrived on the outskirts of the system. The Zykor were a species that had been oppressed under Voltar rule for centuries. They were known for their brute strength and their massive warships. The humans had heard rumors of their displeasure with the Voltar, but they never imagined they would join the fight. The Zykor's arrival was a game-changer. It meant that the Voltar were now facing not just humans and rebels, but a united front of several species who had suffered under the Empire's cruel rule. Captain Grant met with the Zykor fleet's leader, a towering figure named Ronak, who spoke of the atrocities committed by the Voltar. The Zykor had long lived in fear of the Empire and had been forced into slavery to fuel the Voltar's war machine, but now they were free and ready to strike back at their oppressors. The humans were quick to forge an alliance with the Zykor, and together they prepared to launch a series of coordinated attacks on the heart of the Voltar Empire. As the human fleet continued to grow in numbers and strength, the Voltar began to feel the pressure. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and to unite with other oppressed species. Their once unstoppable empire was now facing a new reality. The Voltar had always prided themselves on their advanced technology and military superiority, but they were now dealing with a force they could not predict and a race that would not stop until they had their freedom. Captain Grant stood at the helm of her flagship, looking out at the vastness of space. The stars stretched out before her, and for the first time since the beginning of this war, she felt a sense of hope. Humanity had found allies who were as determined to fight As they were, this was no longer just about survival. It was about taking down an empire and ensuring that the galaxy would never again be ruled by such oppression. The war between humanity and the Valtar Empire escalated as the combined forces of Earth, the Valtar rebels, and the Zykor moved to the next phase of their strategy. The Valtar's retaliation was swift and merciless, but the Alliance was ready. Their first major offensive would target one of the Valtar's most heavily fortified planets, a crucial military hub that supplied their vast fleets. The Valtar had built an almost impenetrable defense around the planet, but Captain Grant and her allies were determined to break through. The plan was set in motion with precise coordination between the fleets. The Zykor warships led the charge, using their overwhelming size and firepower to breach the outer defenses of the planet's orbit, while the humans and rebels conducted a series of covert strikes against the planet's key infrastructure. Human ships would sneak through Valtar lines and disable energy grids, communications, and supply depots in a race against time. Captain Grant knew that if they failed, the Valtar would crush them under the weight of their sheer numbers. As the battle raged on, Captain Grant led a small strike team to infiltrate the Valtar's primary command center, located deep within the planet's heavily fortified capital. This mission was the most dangerous they had undertaken so far. The Valtar's security systems were state-of-the-art, but they had one weakness: the Valtar were arrogant and underestimated the resourcefulness of their enemies. The humans had learned to exploit the enemy's pride and their overconfidence. As Captain Grant's team moved through the dark corridors of the Valtar capital, they encountered stiff resistance from the Empire's elite soldiers, but humanity's resolve was unwavering. Each human soldier fought with a passion that the Valtar had never seen before. They fought not just for survival, but for their future and for the future of the galaxy. As the team pushed forward, they encountered a moment of unexpected resistance. A Valtar commander, who had once served alongside the rebels, revealed himself to be a traitor. He had been working with the Empire all along, but he had been plotting his own rise to power. The betrayal stunned, but Captain Grant and her team pressed on. They could not afford to let personal grievances interfere with the mission. The Valtar had been using their advanced technology to track human movements, but now they had no choice but to rely on outdated tactics to defend their stronghold. The humans quickly adapted and found ways to outsmart their adversaries. Each move was calculated, each decision weighed with the lives of their comrades in the balance. The strike team finally reached the heart of the Valtar command center, where they planted the EMP devices that would disable the planet's defenses and send a clear message to the Empire: humanity would not be easily defeated. In the final moments of the mission, Captain Grant made a decision that would change the course of the war. She left behind a parting message to the Valtar leadership, telling them that their time had come, and they could no longer hold the galaxy in fear and oppression. The humans managed to disable the planet's defenses just as the Zykor fleet broke through the outer layers of the defense perimeter. The combined forces of the humans and their allies achieved a major victory. The Valtar had suffered a crippling blow. The tides of war were beginning to turn, and Captain Grant knew that this was only the beginning. The Valtar Empire had been dealt a heavy loss, but the path to ultimate victory would be long and fraught with danger. The victory at the Valtar military hub sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The Empire's grip on its territories was weakening, and the alliance of humans, rebels, and the Zykor were gaining momentum. The Valtar had always prided themselves on their control over the galaxy, but now they were starting to feel the pressure. The rebellion was no longer a small group of scattered forces. It was a united front, a coalition of species, determined to overthrow their oppressors. Captain Grant stood at the helm of her ship, looking at the vastness of space ahead of her. She knew that the war was far from over, but humanity had come further than anyone had ever expected. With the Valtar on the defensive, the Alliance began to expand its influence. They started to liberate more planets from the Empire's rule. Each victory brought new allies into the fold, more species willing to join the fight for freedom and independence. The Zykor had become one of their most trusted allies. Their warships were a key part of the Alliance's strategy, and their sheer power was a formidable asset against the Valtar. The humans quickly realized that their greatest strength was in their ability to bring together different species with different cultures and different strengths under one cause. The Valtar Empire was crumbling, but the humans knew that they could not rest on their laurels, yet the Empire was still powerful, and its remaining forces were desperate to hold on to what little they had left. The Valtar leadership had become more erratic and aggressive as the war turned against them, and it was clear that they would stop at nothing to maintain control. But now the humans were not alone, and the galaxy was beginning to unite in a way that the Valtar could never have anticipated. Captain Grant had a vision for the future, a vision where the galaxy was no longer ruled by fear and oppression, but by cooperation and mutual respect. She knew that the battle was not just for survival, it was for the future of all sentient life in the galaxy. The defeat of the Valtar was only the first step, and there was still much work to be done. In a strategic meeting with her closest allies, Captain Grant laid out her plan for the next phase of the war. They would launch a final assault on the Valtar's capital system, the heart of their empire. It would be the most dangerous mission yet, but it was the only way to bring an end to the conflict and free the galaxy once and for all. The combined fleets of the humans, rebels, and Xicor would gather for a full-scale assault on the Valtar's stronghold. The Valtar were expecting the attack, but they were no longer the unstoppable force they once were. As the fleet assembled and the final preparations were made, Captain Grant stood before her crew and allies. She addressed them with a simple but powerful message. This was their chance to secure the future of the galaxy, to end the era of Valtar oppression, and to bring about a new age of unity and peace. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the very soul of the galaxy. The war had taken its toll, but the hope of a better future burned brighter than ever. The final assault on the Valtar capital system was set in motion as the Allied fleet assembled in the depths of space. Captain Grant stood on the bridge of her flagship, gazing at the holographic map of the galaxy. Before her, the capital system was heavily guarded. The Valtar would defend their home with everything they had left, but the humans and their allies were prepared. This was not just another battle. This was the culmination of everything they had fought for. Every victory, every sacrifice had led to this moment. The fleets gathered at the outer edge of the system, and Captain Grant knew that they would have to move quickly. The longer they waited, the more time the Valtar had to reinforce their defenses. The first wave would be a distraction to draw the enemy's attention, while the main assault force moved in for the kill. The Xicor warships would lead the charge. Their sheer size and firepower would break through the Valtar's outer defenses. The human ships would follow close behind, providing support and exploiting any weaknesses in the Valtar's lines. The plan was risky, but it was their best chance at victory. The Valtar had no idea how determined the humans and their allies were to end their reign. Captain Grant's strategy relied on speed, precision, and surprise. They couldn't afford to get bogged down in a long, drawn-out battle. If they were going to succeed, they needed to strike fast and hit hard. As the fleets moved into position, Captain Grant felt a surge of adrenaline. It was a feeling she had never experienced before. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for freedom, for the future of every sentient being in the galaxy. She turned to her crew and gave a single command to begin the attack. The first wave of ships launched forward with lightning speed, engaging the Valtar's outer defenses. The Valtar responded quickly, but they were caught off guard by the speed of the human and Xicor fleets. The first wave did its job perfectly. It drew the Valtar's attention while the main assault force moved in. The human ships entered the heart of the capital system. Their target was clear: the Valtar's central command station, the heart of their military and political power. If they could disable the command station, they would cripple the Empire's ability to respond and shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain Grant led the charge herself, the flagship cutting through the Valtar defenses with ruthless precision. She could see the enemy ships closing in, but she was undeterred. Humanity had come this far, and they were not about to fail now. The Valtar's pride and overconfidence had led them to this point, and it would be their downfall. The battle raged as the humans and their allies pushed forward into the heart of the Valtar's territory. The Valtar fleet fought back with all the strength it could muster, but it was clear they were losing the advantage. The Valtar had underestimated the unity of their enemies, and now they were paying the price. Captain Grant's ship moved through the chaos toward the command station ahead. She knew the final blow was within reach, and as the command station loomed ahead, She felt a deep sense of purpose. This was their moment. This was the turning point for the galaxy. The final push toward the Valtar command station was intense. The battle was fierce, but the human fleet and their allies were unstoppable. They had fought for this moment for so long, and now the heart of the Valtar Empire was within reach. Captain Grant's flagship cut through the chaos of the battlefield, weaving between enemy ships with precision and speed. The Valtar defenses were weakening, and the Valtar fleet was being driven back by the combined might of the humans and the Zykor. As the command station grew closer, Captain Grant could see the desperation in the eyes of the Valtar leaders. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought that the humans would crumble under the weight of the Empire's power, but they had not counted on the strength of a united galaxy, a galaxy that had come together to challenge the tyranny of the Valtar Empire. The Valtar command station was a massive structure surrounded by layers of shields and defensive weaponry, but Captain Grant knew that this was their one shot to end the war. She had led her fleet through countless battles, but this one felt different. This was the moment when the Valtar would either fall or rise up in defiance, and humanity's future would be decided. The human fleet surged forward, launching wave after wave of attacks on the station's defenses. The Zykor ships led the charge, their enormous firepower pounding against the station's shields. But the Valtar were not going down without a fight. They had anticipated the attack and had prepared their final line of defense, massive automated weapons platforms that fired on anything within range. The Zykor ships were taking heavy hits, but they pushed forward undeterred. The Valtar were trying to regroup, but it was clear that they were losing control of the situation. Captain Grant's flagship led the final assault on the command station. She knew that the main reactor of the station was the key to disabling the entire structure. The Valtar had placed all their resources into this station. It was their last bastion of power, and without it the Empire would crumble. As the flagship approached the command station, Captain Grant gave the order to engage their final weapon, a devastating EMP pulse designed to disable the station's systems and disrupt the Valtar's command and control structure. The pulse fired with deadly precision, and within moments the Valtar command station was plunged into chaos. The shields flickered and then failed. The station's weapons systems went offline, and its communication grid was severed. Captain Grant knew that this was their moment of victory. As the human fleet moved in to finish the job, the Valtar leaders attempted to send a final message, but it was too late. The Valtar had lost their command center, and their empire was crumbling. The human and Zykor fleets launched a final offensive, tearing through the remaining Valtar ships. The enemy had no chance of regrouping. Their once proud fleet was now in disarray. With the command station destroyed and the Valtar fleet in disarray, Captain Grant knew that the war was effectively over. The Valtar Empire had been shattered, and its leadership was in full retreat. The galaxy had been freed from the grip of oppression, and the humans had played a crucial role in that victory. But the cost had been high. Many lives had been lost in the battle for freedom, and the scars of war would remain. Captain Grant stood on the bridge of her ship, looking at the stars ahead. The battle had been won, but the work of rebuilding the galaxy would begin now, and it would be a long and difficult road. But for the first time in a long time, humanity had hoped. The future was bright, and the galaxy was free. The aftermath of the battle for the Valtar capital system was one of both triumph and sorrow. The once mighty empire had been crushed, and its oppressive rule over the galaxy had come to an end. But the victory came at a heavy cost. Captain Grant stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the remnants of the Valtar fleet drifting through space. The stars seemed brighter now, but they were also a reminder of the destruction left in the wake of the war. The galaxy had been freed, but the scars of battle would take time to heal. The human fleet had emerged victorious, but many ships had been damaged and countless lives had been lost. The Zykor had fought valiantly beside them, and their warriors had paid a high price. As well, the Valtar rebels had been instrumental in the success of the campaign, but they too had lost many of their own in the final battle. The sacrifices made by all of the Allied forces could not be forgotten. As they mourned the fallen, they also knew that their mission had been worth it. They had freed the galaxy from tyranny. Captain Grant had given her all in this war, and she had seen her crew and comrades through the darkest moments of the conflict. Now, with the war officially over, it was time to look to the future. The Alliance had succeeded, but their work was far from done. Rebuilding the shattered galaxy would be a monumental task, but Captain Grant was confident that humanity and its allies could rise to the challenge. They had already shown the galaxy what they were capable of, and now they would prove that they could create a new era of peace and cooperation. The first step was to ensure that the Valtar never again had the power to oppress the galaxy. They had been a menace for far too long, and Captain Grant knew that they had to be dismantled completely. The remnants of the Valtar fleet were disbanded, and their leaders were held accountable for their crimes against countless species. The galaxy was united in their resolve to make sure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. As the Allied forces began to regroup, Captain Grant called for a council meeting to lay the foundations for the future of the galaxy. Representatives from the human fleet, the Zykor, and the Valtar rebels sat together around the table for the first time in history. Species that had once been enemies now worked together as equals. The council was not just about rebuilding, it was about forging a new path forward, a path where all species could coexist in peace and prosperity. Captain Grant addressed the council with a clear vision for the future. She spoke of unity and cooperation. She spoke of a galaxy where the lessons of the past were not forgotten, but used to build a better tomorrow. It was not going to be easy. There would be challenges ahead, but humanity had proven that they could overcome anything when they worked together. They had done the impossible, and they would continue to do so as long as they stood united. As the council began its work to reshape the future of the galaxy, Captain Grant stood outside, looking at the stars once again. She felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. Humanity had fought for their freedom and had been given the opportunity to create something better. The war was over, but the journey had just begun. And so with the fall of the Valtar Empire, the galaxy entered a new era, an era where the legacy of oppression was replaced with the promise of hope and unity. Humanity had established itself as a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy, and the galaxy had learned that no matter how strong an empire might seem, no power could stand against the will of a united people fighting for their freedom.